Hey everyone, School902 here. As hard as it is to believe, it was 5 years ago that I started making solo Let's Plays on this channel. Honestly, video game commentary is one of my favorite things to do, so I thought I'd look back and give my thoughts on each LP I've ever done, as well as give some behind-the-scenes details along the way. Get ready for a trip down memory lane, because here we go. The one that started it all. At the time, my biggest LP influence was the Super Gaming Brothers, and so I wanted to do the playthroughs live with a commentary partner. My little brother shot it down and so did a few others, so I decided to go solo. I started off pretty nervous, but opened up a bit more beginning in part 3. You can kinda tell the difference if you watch parts 1 and 6 back to back. Though I was doing better at the end, I was still fairly nervous, which I even made a comment about during the credits. As far as the making of this LP goes, what you watch when you see it is my second attempt. Earlier I had recorded up to Labyrinth Zone, but when I forgot to save the commentary for part 4, I decided to start the whole thing over again. This was also one of the first projects I used my Logitech headset on, so I was getting better mic quality than I would have had I done this on my Windows XP computer that died earlier that year. Speaking of, the last thing that I'll mention is that a year prior, I recorded a proto-LP of Knuckles and Sonic 1 on said computer with the same live commentary style, but wasn't satisfied with the commentary and got rid of it. Originally, I was planning on playing Sonic 2 next, but then I remembered, oh yeah, I can beat this one in like 20 minutes and recorded it for the sake of ease. Still nervous doing live commentary, but I did a better job at masking it than in Sonic 1. One thing I kinda regret, which isn't even my fault, is my surprise at doing the combo 3 times despite not knowing how to do them. In the recording it sounds like a fake reaction, but I swear it was genuine. I just don't know how to talk apparently. Here's where I take inspiration from a different source. I'm a fan of Mega G-Wolf, and he's 100% responsible for my interest in checking out Sonic hacks. The first 2 episodes were done while I was still trying to make live commentary my thing. Then for the longest time I had other stuff I prioritized doing over this, and then when I did the last couple episodes 2 years later it was kinda weird. I settled on doing post-commentary at that point, and practiced that format for the 3rd episode, but then went back to live for the 4th. I announced that I'd be doing videos about hacks differently in episode 3 and intended to make that one the finale to the old format, but extended the series by another episode so that I could have a video for Christmas after finding a fitting hack for the occasion. I do still intend to show off hacks under a different scripted format, but when and how is up in the air at this point. This one was a game changer. Still trying to make live commentary work, I was less nervous, but I had a problem forgetting things during the recording of this one. I was constantly having to go back and look for trivia to talk about between parts, gave an impromptu channel update when I couldn't think of much to say, and since this was before I was able to get the good ending, the back half of the game starting in Oil Ocean kicked my ass. That in particular, as well as a break I had to take between parts 5 and 6 that left me a little frustrated, had me getting a tad too upset for my liking during Wing Fortress and Death Egg. Combine that with this fact, much like Sonic 1 I forgot to save the commentary for part 4. Instead of restarting the LP, I went for recording the part in post and I felt much better doing that. I lost some good live commentary freaking out over the seahorses in Oil Ocean, but I'd say it was worth it. After that point, I decided I'd take inspiration instead from my favorite LPer, The Great Clement, and do solo commentary in post. It took me 3 years to get to the extra video that I'd been promising, which sucks, but I think it turned out for the better because there was a few nice bits of info and media to come out between my original LP and the extras. For example, the Sonic Tuesday launch videos? They had barely been up on YouTube by the time the extra video was made. I might be one of the first people to use said footage in my own work. It was also the first time I got console footage for an LP, thanks to my older brother's Xbox One, which we recorded multiplayer from. It takes quite a bit more to do the extras like this than a typical LP video, and Sonic 2 was my learning experience for that. Then I noticed a near mistake in one of my line deliveries, and that was the catalyst for me making my Storytime with School902 series, so that's something. This one took forever to get rolling. I first beat the game about a month after the Sonic 2 LP ended, and I knew I was going to want to do a playthrough of it. In January 2016, I recorded the footage, but during the time of my early Let's Plays, I was using my grandma's computer, which seemed to be getting less reliable by the day. I wasn't sure if it'd be able to handle rendering the videos, and so the footage sat unused for a while. After the problems were resolved early the next year, I delayed the LP thinking that I could do 3 and Knuckles next, more on that later. Problem was I wasn't able to get much time on the computer anymore, and whenever I did, I had to use it for more standalone videos. I did learn during this time that using the raw AVI file straight from Kega Fusion just wasn't gonna cut it for editing in Vegas with the post-com style, so to make things easier, I put the raw gameplay in and rendered the videos as is before editing those ones for commentary. Once I moved to my current apartment and was gifted a computer all my own, I was really able to get to work on it. As for the commentary itself, it was actually a pretty chill time, I think. Recording the audio for a part or a couple parts, editing it together in Vegas, then putting it on YouTube to repeat the process the next day. There was a small interruption so that I could post when dubs get preachy and my Christmas content for that year, but I was just as relaxed getting back into it for the last couple parts. That's the general term I'd use to describe this LP, relaxed. It was fun. I also still get a kick out of naming Part 2 Ack less than a month before I met Symph. So far the only Japanese exclusive game that I've covered, and a bit of an obscure one too. Not much to say about this one, it was a pretty standard commentary for me. After a scrapped recording using SNES 9X's built-in recording system the year before, I did this LP to test out OBS and it helped me learn the ropes of how recording worked, and further tests would help me finalize my ideal settings. The only thing I feel is missing from this LP is the game's bad ending. So after I decided to do post-commentary for my LPs, I really felt that I could make up for my original Sonic 1 and 2 runs. To do that, at first I was gonna do this game and the next one exclusively for another site called VidMe and do classic Sonic Heroes for YouTube, but VidMe shut down almost as soon as I moved into this apartment. With classic Sonic Heroes giving me problems in the recording process, I decided to scrap doing that as an LP and do these two games instead, along with Sonic Chaos. Overall, I see them as improvements upon the originals. On the editing side of things, I finally realized that one layer of color correction was enough, and so the colors on my videos turn out much better now. And also helped lessen the amount of artifacting in them. For Tails and Sonic 1 specifically, it's one of only 2 LPs so far in my post-commentary run to show a death. My rule is typically not to show them unless if they're particularly amusing, and well, if these glitches aren't particularly amusing, I don't know what is. When it comes to making up for the old runs, I think it was much more needed for this than it was with Sonic 1, and I'm happy with the result. Post-commentary, so no part dragged on for too long with deaths or whatever, I got the good ending. It was a fairly pleasant experience with this one, not to mention how chill I took it when recording the final part. I was drinking alcohol during it, Black Cherry Smirnoff Ice to be precise, and was genuinely enjoying my time talking over the footage. Good stuff. The third of 3 for this batch of midwinter LPs. They bled into the spring because I was busy working on other projects, namely Knuckles is Lonely and Amy is Best Anime, up until April when the frames for Amy is Best Anime were done, but I was unable to move on to the voice acting portion of the project. I was in a bit of a rut, not knowing what to do now considering the circumstances. Then Clement posted his 10th anniversary retrospective, and that just gave me a big spark to get the LP train back up and rolling. Springtime was cluttered with LP videos thanks to this man. With Sonic Chaos in particular, the only thing I'd say I would change about this LP is its structure. I should have had the foresight to know that Sleeping Egg Zone wouldn't take me nearly as long. Something I find weird about this one is that for each part, YouTube auto-generated thumbnails on the morbid-sounding results screen. Tails has passed, and Susan wants you to know it. Ultimate Flash Sonic took me so many attempts. One recording the footage was too low quality, another one there was no sound, not to mention all the times I'd just be doing shitty in the game and have to restart. So much time and effort put into such a short game. I think it came out well enough after the fact though. It was so short I decided to include the extras in the main LP, which became a standard for my single part Flash game playthroughs. Nearly 2 years in the making. Originally, this was just going to be a standard LP as I was doing them when I started out. Beginning to end, live commentary, blah blah blah. But during the downtime where I thought I wouldn't be able to work on it, having already decided on going post-com, I was watching Cybershell's Sonic 2 LP, seeing the skits he attached to some parts. Then I thought, I could do something similar. I began to think about it, and then it hit me. Machinima. It was something I wanted to do for a while. Taking inspiration from Red vs. Blue and the Sonic Tales, I began to write a series of machinima skits featuring some lighthearted commentary on the levels, combined with the subplot about Tails working his way through Sonic 1 and 2 to meet back up with our hero. The writing and voice acting were taken care of fairly early on. Recording was another story. I knew I was going to do a Sonic run and a Knuckles run, but I didn't know if I'd be doing them consecutively or further apart. Obviously, I went with the Sonic playthrough first, and my original attempt was recorded about 11 months before the LP got started. I wasn't happy with the footage though and dumped it a few months later. At some point I decided to do Sonic and Knuckles' runs at the same time, and after taking care of the LPs I had on the docket before then, I was ready to finally take this on. Aside from a few shots I got around the time I made my original recording, I did most of the Machinima shots on May 17th, 2018, and recorded Sonic's run soon after. That time it took 2 attempts, as the first was interrupted by a blackout, forcing me to start again. My patience was rewarded though, and I got my first deathless run of the game for the playthrough. Knuckles' run was recorded a couple days later with slightly less fortune, and then I went to work on finishing it, recording the commentary, putting the Machinima together, everything. I even made a trailer for it, that was a first. On the commentary side of things, I felt like I was on a roll after finishing the previous 4 LPs only days before, which helped me a lot. By the end of the Knuckles run, I felt like I lost some steam, but I was able to make it through. Once the Machinima got compiled, fixing a few errors along the way, I felt like it was one of my best composed videos and still do. The extra video was made in December and that sure was a test. There was way more that went into it than the Sonic 2 extras, since there's a lot more info to dig into when talking about 3 and K. In the end, I think I dragged on during the commentary parts of the video, but the scripted bits hold up. It also helps that I was feeling pretty good around the time, just like with Sonic 1 8-bit the previous year. It was a different story for the Sonic 3 Complete video. I don't remember the exact cause, but I had a real big lack of motivation and forced myself to do that one. I think it shows in my voiceover. Considering that, I'm rather amazed at the numbers it's gotten. For the most part, I'd say doing this LP was a super fun time. That being said, it wasn't just this LP. The last in my spring 2018 lineup, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers is a childhood favorite that I had only first beaten just earlier that year, plus one other time on stream. I figured it'd be good to have something to break up the parts of Sonic 3 and K, and this game would be easy enough to do. Unfortunately, the LP curse kicked me pretty hard because I believe it took 3 or 4 attempts to record it. Not to mention I forgot about the super moves in the Zord fights, so the last 2 levels gave me some trouble. That being said, I still felt like I was cruising through the commentary here and it turned out sounding relaxed, much like Sonic 1 8-bit. Something that surprises me is how much attention Part 4 gets. I guess a lot of people were also fans of Toy Trang, and you know what? That's pretty great. The only regrets I have with it are my aforementioned forgetfulness in the Zord fights, as well as not showing off Billy or Trini's screen nukes. Maybe a mashup extra video with this and Carranger would be a good idea to get that out of the way. Halloween. I wanted to celebrate it with an LP of Manos: The Hands of Fate, but that game's difficulty was something I wasn't prepared for. What scary ground am I to cover to celebrate the season? Propaganda games, of course. That's the message I failed to get across when introducing Super Chick Sisters and had to awkwardly explain later on. I think doing these commentaries helped me out a little bit. When I was recording Super Chick Sisters, I was in a fairly depressive state and trying to get out of it. By the time Pokemon Red, White, and Blue came along, I was having fun and more or less was back to my normal self. I look back at these commentaries fondly. The Pokemon one specifically would lay the groundwork for how I'd format later LPs, in terms of inserting gags here and there. It's a real shame about these games though. Most of them I'd honestly give a recommendation, at least for the sake of curiosity, and I legit believe the Super Chick Sisters games are good. It's just that they have a bad message attached to them. Entering 2019, I wanted to start grouping LPs into seasonal blocks and put them on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule. After getting delayed by sickness in February, I went to put this plan into action at the end of March. Little did I know what my body had in store for me just a bit later on. I recorded and edited the gameplay of Kid Speedy about 2 months before doing the commentary. It's a game I fondly remember playing on the Homestar Runner website when I got into the series about a decade prior. That being said, I felt like I was struggling during the commentary. Not to an unsalvageable point, but it's kinda noticeable. It did, however, manage to get me warmed up for the next game, and it was the first Let's Play I did using my then new Samsung Q2U mic, so hey, improved audio once again. Delays actually helped me out on this one. Had it been a year prior, I would have had to do this and other Nintendo playthroughs on Super Chaos Comms in order to avoid copyright IDs. Late in 2018, Nintendo said they'd be abandoning the practice and now I could LP their games on my personal channel. MARIOLAND is an interesting choice for the first one of these games, but its short length helped me get back into the flow of doing commentary in preparation for bigger projects. I did a playthrough with Josh on SCC nearly 5 years prior that holds a lot of sentimental value to me, and ultimately I like it more than this LP, but I have an appreciation for this one since it and the next are the only ones of the Spring 2019 block that went by completely smoothly. I had wanted to do an April Fool's video on this game for years. An attempt 5 years earlier on SEC failed, and now that I was putting big focus on Let's Plays at the right time, I knew it would be a good opportunity to finally do it. Part LP, part skit, this was a nice silly one to do. The fact I only needed to press a single button as well as that GameFAQs review I found gave me a good amount of material to go over. Plus, Rabbit got to shoot me at the end, which I'm sure made him happy. This is where things started to go downhill in terms of the behind-the-scenes situation. At this point, I had started experiencing stomach pains and a lack of motivation that I still haven't fully recovered from, though thankfully it hasn't gotten that bad in over a year. I was able to do the first video just fine, but the extras were delayed and I had to preemptively fuck up my schedule in order to make sure they all got released in a timely manner. I was trying my best to manage it, and I think I was able to hide that fact in the commentary. The LP's structure is a bit of a reversal from what you'd expect with me. That's because Josh and I were joking around about it. I always figured the LPs on my channel should be the place to mess around and be a little less professional than Super Chaos Comms anyway. The content thankfully wasn't affected by it, but I was starting to feel pretty bad around the time I did this one. I had the footage for about 3 months before getting started on the LP. My health was worsening, causing me to delay it for a month, and when things weren't getting better I just thought screw it and churned out the commentary, which is why I used my headset for this one. The condition I was in does show a bit in the commentary, I feel, but I'm just glad I was able to get through it. At this point my stomach was making me feel completely miserable, and that would last for the next couple of months. I intended for all 3 of the last parts to come out on my birthday, but my mom insisted on taking me to dinner that day, so the finale got delayed a tiny bit. It kinda worked out. I mentioned a triple upload day in part 5, but don't mention my birthday at all in part 7, so it could have been worse. I see the Spring 2019 LPs as something bittersweet. On the surface they're pretty standard fare for me, but man was I going through a rough time by the end of it. A bit of a shame there. I feel my first Let's Play in HD could have been a little more grand, but considering the circumstances, not much I could do. Those stomach troubles I mentioned earlier delayed a lot of projects of mine, including a batch of LPs I wanted to do during the summer. Sonic Mania was the one I had planned to go first, and kept it on the schedule when I shortened it after my condition greatly improved in July. Recording took a couple attempts, but nothing too bad, except my first ever loss on Special Stage 7, yikes. And aside from a teensy bit of stomachache in the middle, which also affected the next LP, the commentary went by smoothly. I even started to feel a bit of that roll I was on with 3&K near the end, though obviously it didn't last as long. Something about this one that trips me up is the image that shows up after the credits. I know damn well I didn't edit it like this, but to me it looks like it's moving in a weird way after it fades in. So odd, wonder if anyone else felt that way. For a while I was conflicted on whether I should do a full playthrough for Knuckles like 3&K or a smaller video just showing the essentials. After I had to delay my SADX playthrough a bit, I needed a video for my birthday, so I figured showcasing the Knuckles run like that would work, and I'm glad I did it that way to be honest. I think I would have quickly run out of things to say otherwise. A scripted extra video showing off other details is coming, but I've got no clue when. Much like Sonic CD, I had this one waiting for a while. Originally intended to be one of my spring LPs, I recorded it about 5 months before it began. Like the Super Nintendo version of Power Rangers, this LP served to break up parts of a bigger one. Surprisingly, the recording process went pretty well. I only beat the game once before doing the LP, so I alternated each day between practicing a world and then recording it. One bit in the finale I'm particularly happy with is how I was able to tie in a story about how I used to frequent David Buster's with the game, even if I messed up the end a little. The summer 2019 block was cut quite short, but making these LPs was a good time. The first Mario game I ever beat, which is a bit weird considering some of the others that took me longer or that I still haven't beaten. Nevertheless, this and the next game hold a very special meaning to me, and it ties into Christmas, so I wanted to do them for the holidays late last year. For Lost Levels, I decided to play through it as Luigi, not only because I first beat the game with him, or thought that I was experienced enough with the game to take on the extra challenge, but it's also the culmination of a brick joke I set up in the MARIOLAND LP. While Mario's busy saving Daisy in Sarasaland, Luigi takes up saving Peach in the Mushroom Kingdom. However, I did a stupid and forgot to mention it in the commentary. I guess that'll have to go in the extra video. It balances out though. Josh found a backgroundless picture of the same bootleg Luigi plush he has that we turned into an in-joke, so I was able to turn that into a skit. Plus my scheduling just so happened to have part 2 released on Friday the 13th. I'd say it worked out fairly well. That being said, I think my commentary started taking a hit near the end. I was seemingly getting some detail wrong or forgetting others in each part, and I had to vent about it in the finale. I left the LP nervous about my performance, which carried over into the next one. The second half of my holiday Let's Play celebration, one of my absolute favorite games right here. But man was I nervous in my commentary. Screwing up all those details and lost levels had a bit of an after effect. I often lost my train of thought or just felt like I wasn't doing good enough a fair bit of the time. It was at its worst in part 5, what with me talking about doing a slightly different style of commentary that not only didn't work out, but openly expressing doubt that it would. In retrospect, it still shows, but it wasn't as bad as I was worrying about. I think watching episodes of the cartoon to fill in when I felt I was losing my place was a good idea, and I legit had a good time describing the episodes I was talking about. By the end, I'd say I got out of that funk. With the last 2 parts going up on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, I knew I wanted to spread out my love and appreciation for not just the game but my fans, friends, and family alike. I knew exactly what I wanted to say in part 7 and 8, and I believe I made good use of the time. I can get into a good comfort zone when I'm being nostalgic, and that certainly helped me exit the commentary in a good mood. Something of a 5th anniversary celebration with my first Let's Play of a full 3D game. If you thought Sonic 3 and Knuckles took a long time to get to, get a load of this. Around late 2017, I started thinking about how to style my LPs and thought that attaching skits would be one such way to do that. I was already doing it for 3 and K, why not more? So I wrote the first few skits for the SADX playthrough and came up with the general idea for others. More would get added with time, the last of which being the intro, funnily enough, and the What We Learned skit at the end of January this year. After taking care of some of the work I needed to get to with Sonic and Mario, I recorded the gameplay in March, which was a smooth ride, only taking deaths in Sonic and Amy's stories. A couple shots of machinima for the skits were recorded around the same time, and the rest were done in June due to various delays that I was experiencing during the whole process. Speaking of which, holy shit did it take me a long time to get the commentary finished. I recorded at least a little bit of it every month from March to July, but if I had the motivation or a stomach that wasn't bothering me or whatever issues I had during that time, I certainly would have been able to make the release date I had planned for it. Though it did suffer from delays, which in turn affected other LPs I was planning on doing around the same time, I hope that there's an effort in this one that shows, because I put more hours into it than any other by a long shot with all the skits and gags I had planned. I've mentioned this a lot, but doing those skits and gags, I felt like I was growing as a video editor because I was doing a bunch of stuff I hadn't done before, such as the chroma keying in this graphic, or doing other things better than I had in previous attempts like my sound effects editing and the gag dubs. I also felt pretty good about the commentary. I started using my Samson Meteor so that I could listen to the video as I blabbered on to make sure I wasn't talking over the cutscenes, which acted as a way for me to take breaks and allow myself some time to think about what I was going to say next, and I think that helped greatly. I was also able to get each part out on consecutive days, and the comments you all left on it were so nice. I really appreciate the kind words and constructive criticism. Not to mention the other people who worked on the skits and extra material with me. My younger brother, Josh, Symph, all the VAs. You guys are the real MVPs of this playthrough, and I can't thank you for your efforts enough. That right there keeps me going. And so we've caught up to the present. Again, Let's Playing is one of my favorite things to do on this channel. What does the future hold? Well, I've got plans, but we'll just have to wait and see how they hold up. Despite the nerves I get, the delays, technical difficulties, or whatever the case may be, doing LPs has been an enjoyable ride, and I hope you think so as well. I have been Skull902, thank you for watching, and have yourselves a wonderful day.